Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, you all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, of course, I thought that I would give my little fight prediction. And of course, today is Monday. It is the beginning of the week. I believe that this fight is still happening for whatever reason. When I looked it up, I could not find it on whatever the boxing record was of it upcoming. But I believe that this is still going to be upcoming. I believe that this is a fight that is actually going to be happening this Friday, I believe, because I believe they said it's happening on March 4th in the big UFC fight card between Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. That happens this Saturday, I believe, on March 5th. But if I'm wrong about that, someone correct me. But anyways, I thought that we would talk about this very interesting and very decent boxing fight between these two very good competitors at the 140-pound division at the current moment in time. And that is the Jose Ramirez versus Jose Pedraza fight. This is going to be a classic matchup between Mexico and that of Puerto Rico. So it's going to be a very interesting fight. Jose Ramirez, of course, for those of you that don't know, was somewhat recently the unified champion of 140 pounds. And then I say somewhat because he had two of the titles there. Don't remember which specific titles they were, but he did have two of the titles of the four main titles before, of course, he ended up losing a decision to Josh Taylor. I thought personally that he ended up losing somewhat dominantly to Josh Taylor, but of course the scorecards were decently close. But that's no need for shame when it comes down to it because Josh Taylor is a very decent fighter. Of course, he didn't show up his very best self in his last fight, but for those of us that know Josh Taylor, we all know that he's an A-grade fighter, at least A minus to A grade. So there's no real big shame in losing to Josh Taylor, in my view. Jose Ramirez gave it his best, try. He just overall wasn't able to get past him. The big question is, how is Jose Ramirez going to look in this fight against that of Jose Pedraza? Will Jose Pedraza also be able to somewhat come back in this fight as well? These are two fighters that have both had their ups and downs throughout their fighting career. What I'll say about Jose Pedraza is this. Jose Pedraza, even though he doesn't really look like an A-grade fighter on the surface, and I don't think I would have him as an A-grade fighter, he is someone that, in my opinion, actually may be a little bit more on the underrated side. I don't think that he's ever going to beat someone that is looked at as the creme de la creme of boxing. That's why he didn't defeat Gervonta Tank Davis or Vasily Lomachenko, and I don't even think he beat Jose Zepeda by decision. But at the end of the day, Jose Pedraza, he is someone that actually is a little bit underrated in my view. He actually is a legitimate two-weight division champion, meaning that he actually has won legitimate belts within two-weight divisions, not interim belts, not regular belts when it comes down to actual belts when it came down to it. I believe that he won the IBF title overall when he was at the super featherweight division, and then at the lightweight division, I think he won the WBO title there. So Jose Pedraza, he actually has been a multiple-time legitimate champion throughout his career. So this is not a person that, in my view, Jose Ramirez, can underestimate here. He has to take this dude very, very seriously, in my view. And all in all, I think that it's going to be a very interesting bout. But just heading into it, who do I think personally is going to win this fight? I am going to personally go with that of Jose Ramirez. I think that Jose Ramirez, in my view, I just think that he has the better athleticism on his side. I think that Jose Ramirez, I think that his power is going to more than likely get to him. I think that more than likely that Jose Ramirez, that I just think that he's going to be a little bit too much for Jose Pedraza, and I don't really know how well Jose Pedraza is going to handle 140 in the first place. I don't really remember him as of recently winning any big fights at 140. I think that if Jose Pedraza was really going to be a majorly big threat, that more than likely he would have won that big fight against Jose Zepeda, and he didn't. And Jose Zepeda, he's not a bad fighter, in my opinion. He's just not really someone that I would call the creme de la creme. He's not someone, in my opinion, that's A grade. So Jose Pedraza, I think that, it's possible for him to pull off the upset here. It's possible for him to get a victory over here. In my view, what does Jose Pedraza have to do? I think that he has to do kind of what he regularly does, which is, move around, box, try to outbox the opponent from the distance. Sometimes he's a little bit successful, sometimes he's not, depending on the opponent. Jose Ramirez is not a person, in my view, that always has the greatest defenses. He doesn't have bad head movement, but even that can be exploited a little bit as well. So if you want to try to outbox Jose Ramirez on the outside, I think you're going to have to give him different angles. I think all in all that you're going to have to move around him quite well. I think all in all that you're just going to have to try to move around him constantly. So I think that if Jose Pedraza is going to do more than likely what I think he is going to do, which is basically just move around him, throughout the whole entire fight, try to outbox him, try to stick your jab out there, and set him up for counters. I don't think that that's necessarily the worst game plan, But because of Jose Ramirez's power and the way that sometimes he can cut off the ring against opponents, I do think that you're going to have to give him a certain amount of different angles. You're going to have to move around constantly in this fight. You're going to have to be in very, very good condition. So when it comes down to it, I think Jose Pedraza needs to stick his jab out there and sometimes set him up for the left cross, because I believe Jose Pedraza is a southpaw. You can maybe get him just like how Josh Taylor got him, in that fight that happened not too long ago. Also put the left uppercut in there as well, because Jose Ramirez, sometimes he'll dip down and sometimes he'll be open for the uppercut as well. Jose Pedraza, in my opinion, he has to move around quite a lot in this fight, give him different angles, give him feints when it comes down and get to him early, try to hurt him early, try to make Jose Ramirez second guess himself. He is coming off of a loss where he got hurt multiple times in that fight and knocked down in that fight. When it came down to it, it was the first loss of his career. Maybe if you can get to him, especially early, maybe you can get Jose Ramirez to second guess himself. We don't know necessarily what version of Jose Ramirez is going to come into this fight, because he recently just lost that undefeated record. Sometimes when fighters lose that undefeated record, they're never mentally the same ever again. So Jose Pedraza, I think that he has to get to him early. He has to be willing to exchange with him at times, although you don't want to do it all the time, because Jose Ramirez is naturally bigger and stronger than you. But he is going to have to be willing to stand his ground here and there. Throw uppercuts to the body. Throw a little good uppercut to the chin on the inside, because sometimes he's a little bit available for that, because he dips down overall in a certain way to where I think he's open for uppercuts. So try to throw that in there. If I were to give advice to Mr. Jose Ramirez to beat Jose Pedraza, what would I overall say that he needs to do? I think he needs to work off his jab, try to jab to the body, try to jab to the head. More than likely, Jose Pedraza, he's going to be the fighter that's on the back foot in this fight, so you're going to have to try to cut off the ring here. Once you get on the inside, throw that good left to the body and to the head. Jose Pedraza can be very vulnerable to hooks when it comes down to it. If you're able to pressure Jose Pedraza, especially early, sometimes he may get a little bit overwhelmed, kind of like how he did against Gervonta Tank Davis and overall against that of Vasily Lomachenko. If you're able to land those good power shots early, this fight actually may be determined about who gets to who more a little bit early on, because both of these fighters can be affected a little bit by power. Jose Ramirez, I do think also that he's going to have to throw some of the punches and bunches here, or at least throw more than what he usually does, because Jose Ramirez sometimes, he actually relies a little bit more on his accuracy and his counter-punching ability, which is good. He's not a bad fighter at that whatsoever. It's just that against someone like a Jose Pedraza, especially someone who's going to be highly motivated to pull off the upset here, and someone who actually has decent power for the weight division, not A-grade power, but decent power, you have to be careful in this fight, man. You have to be very, very careful. So I think that whoever gets to who early when it comes down, especially with those power shots, I think more than likely that's going to be the victor. I think that more than likely Jose Ramirez is probably going to win this fight. He probably is and should be the favorite heading into this fight. But you just never know how a fighter is going to be after they just suffered their first loss. I don't know if they made coaching changes or not. I would have to see. But when it comes down to it, I am going to go with Jose Ramirez in this fight. I'm going to say more than likely that he wins either by majority or unanimous decision. I don't see a knockout happening here. If a knockout did end up happening, I would say that that's very impressive by whoever fighter that got it. More than likely, if a knockout happens, it's probably going to be on the side of Jose Ramirez here. It's possible that there could be knockdowns on either end. It's possible that there could be a knockout on either end. I just see that more than likely Jose Ramirez getting it. But after that fight with Josh Taylor, you just don't know where he's going to be mentally. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to go with the safe bet here. I'm going to go with Jose Ramirez. I think more than likely that he wins this fight. But you just never know. It'll be very, very interesting. Some fighters, like I said, they're never the same again after that first loss. His chin may not be the same quite as of yet. He didn't necessarily get knocked out, but he did get quite brutally, or I'm not going to say brutally, but he did get quite outboxed in that fight, in my view. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, that's really about it overall for my fight prediction. I'm going to have Jose Ramirez by either majority or unanimous decision. Wouldn't surprise me if it was a split decision either. But we'll see. I don't know what happens. But anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you all later.